Trump says it's do or die for Iran. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Entering the 8th week of the war in Iran, and the president says he'll have a resolution regardless of what happens in Pakistan this week. A resolution coming soon. Telling ABC News he's getting a peace deal one way or another. The nice way or the hard way, it's going to happen. You can quote me. Now, this after it appears Iran's Revolutionary Guard took control of the country at some point in recent days, shutting down the Strait of Hormuz after it very briefly opened. Iran back under control of hardliners who might learn the hard way real soon. Iran firing on 2 merchant vessels in the strait on Saturday. Then an Iranian cargo ship attempted to break through the American blockade, tried to bust through it. The president says one of our ships blew a hole directly into its engine room. Video shows Marines rappelling down to take control of that Iranian ship, which is now in our possession. Trump with a warning to the regime in Iran.
If you don't have a deal by Wednesday when the ceasefire ends, will you extend the ceasefire or will you start attacks again?
Maybe I won't extend it.
Okay.
But the blockade is going to remain. But maybe I won't extend it. So you have a blockade, and unfortunately we'll have to start dropping bombs again.
Well, there you go right there. It appears over the last several days, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has flexed pretty hard on what is left of Iran's political class and effectively taken over the country, which kind of makes sense. The IRGC are the ones that have the guns. And the chaos of this war has made Iran extremely unstable. So there's been kind of a power struggle. The job of the IRGC has always been to protect the regime, to make sure that the Islamic regime in Iran always stays in power. It looks like the IRGC just took that power for itself, which is going to make things somewhat interesting here in the coming days. The commander, Major General Ahmad Vahidi, now running the show, has a half-dead Ayatollah that he probably doesn't have to deal with too much. This is how the Strait of Hormuz went from open, as it was late last week, to closed, and why ships moving through the strait were suddenly fired upon. So we're going to see how long the Trump White House lets this very defiant general continue to live. In the meantime, as war fatigue continues to spread, threatening the midterms, a 60 Minutes piece on this war, validating the decisions made by the president just 8 weeks ago. Take a look.
Iran has been lying about its nuclear weapons effort for over 20 years now. They have always claimed our program was 100% peaceful. We were never pursuing nuclear weapons. That's a lie. Once the international inspectors got in and started finding some things out, the Iranians kept lying to them.
UN inspectors believe Iran has close to 1,000 pounds of uranium enriched to 60%. 970 pounds of 60% highly enriched uranium. What can you do with that?
So that is enough material for 10 to 11 nuclear bombs.
You have it right there. Lying, and they have a lot of nuclear material. This is exactly what Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff said Iran told him at the very beginning of negotiations before this war, this operation began. Iran had enough juice for about 10 nuclear bombs. A regime that is run by a militant, psychotic interpretation of the Quran would soon have 10 nuclear weapons and was rapidly expanding and perfecting its ballistic program for delivery. You can hate this war all you want, and a lot of people do, but there are just some things that have to be done. And hopefully that is getting clearer and clearer to the American people. The more this is investigated, the more the impetus for all this is investigated, the more the behavior of Iran is investigated. It's pretty hard to deny at this point. Something had to be done in this moment. Just because you weren't keen to it when it all kicked off doesn't mean the threat didn't exist. Maybe it was better for Trump's approval to kick this can down the road, as so many before him have. Oh, Iran, I don't want to touch that. Let's just kick it down the road. And the next president, 2028, maybe they'll deal with it, whatever. That probably was more politically viable, especially in this moment right now. But is that really all that matters when you're running a country? Is what to do, what's best for your politics, for your brand? Not when it comes to something like this. UN Ambassador Michael Waltz saying this on Sunday.
The Iranian regime, we've put them in chaos, but at the same time, we are never going to take an approach of trust. Any deal that comes out of this will have to absolutely be verifiable and be enforceable. Anybody who has dealt with the Iranians will tell you it is often 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. They're incredibly slippery. We have to take the perspective that we're not waiting, we're not trusting. We are reducing their capabilities. Their military is in shambles. Their missile program is in shambles. And now, hopefully, diplomatically, they will do it the easy way rather than the hard way of finally giving up on this illegal ambition.
The architects of the Iran nuclear deal have spent the last week or so bashing Trump for ending that deal. You've heard a lot out of them, pretending that the Obama deal was somehow effective in keeping the threat of Iran at bay, which is ridiculous. But of course, when you look back, you can kind of you can make it look a lot better than it was. Trump skewering these delusional critics, saying Obama actually gave $1.7 billion in green cash loaded onto a Boeing 757 and flown to Iran for Iranian leadership to spend any way they saw fit. And that, by the way, that was just a little bit of the money that Iran got, the relief and sanctions and everything else. $1.7 billion in cash, saying his deal will be something that the entire world will actually be proud of instead of the years of embarrassment and humiliation that we have been forced to suffer due to incompetent and cowardly leadership. And that's exactly right. Just because Obama and company, and Biden too, got away with being so weak on Iran doesn't mean that that was the smart way to handle this foreign policy. And at some point, the weakness on Iran would have blown up in our faces. Harley Lippman is a foreign policy and geopolitical expert, and he joins us now. And, sir, it's good to have you on the show. The Revolutionary Guard now in control. I want to start with how that changes the equation in your mind.
Well, it shows how desperate Iran is. I make an analogy with World War II. The Nazi Party became radicalized and extreme in the last year of the war because they knew they were collapsing. And that's what happens when a regime is breaking, as Iran is now. That's why we have to keep the pressure up. They are falling apart. Inflation is at 180%. Millions of people are unemployed because of the war. Their currency is down 97%. Don't pay attention to their bravado. President Trump has shown strategic resolve with strategic courage. Now we want to make sure he shows strategic resolve, and he needs to finish the job because no nation in American history has been more obsessed with destroying the United States than Iran is. And it's arrogant. Yes.
Yeah, no, well, I just wanted to ask, when you hear, I mean, the 60 Minutes reporting on the potential of 10 nuclear weapons, what was their arsenal when we decided to start making these moves? We started last summer and we continue right now. That certainly validates the decisions because there's a lot of people, especially in Trump's own party, that have been very critical about the decision to do this. But this was obviously a regime that was about to fully insulate itself and be able to continue this behavior of theirs, horrific behavior, and probably far worse for a very long time, had we not made a move.
Right. You know, you mentioned that it may not be convenient for the midterm elections, but this is about our children and our grandchildren. America has an existential threat from Iran. Since 1979, they have been at war with the United States. And the United States has to be able to show courage, which I think President Trump is doing. Yep. Nobody else had a solution. All the people that criticize President Trump have not come up with anything better in how to deal with Iran.
Just ignore it. Their plan was just to ignore it and focus domestically because it's better for the party politically. I want to put this up really quick. This is from Galabov. He just posted this about 90 minutes ago. Trump, by imposing a siege and violating the ceasefire, seeks to turn this negotiating table in his own imagination into a table of surrender or to justify renewed warmongering. We do not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats, and in the past 2 weeks, we have prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield. The last sentence is interesting. They're supposed to meet tomorrow. What do you think happens here?
Well, I think it's all bravado and bluff on the part of Iran. They can't be trusted. And I hope President Trump tries to and will successfully finish this. I think he should go after the oil facilities in Iran. You have to break the regime. And that's how wars are resolved. When you look at World War I, the Germans lost, but they didn't feel defeated. And they came back 20 years later for war. But after World War II, the Germans, 80 years later, have no appetite for war. Why? Because they were utterly and totally defeated. And that's what has to happen here. There's going to be no cheap outcome. We're going to have to defeat the IRGC for future generations of America's peace and security.
Harley Lippman, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Tommy Tuberville on the Senate Armed Services Committee joins us tonight. And, sir, it's good to have you back on. I want to start with the reports that the Revolutionary Guard is now in control of Iran, in control of these negotiations, which kind of makes sense. General Ahmad Vahidi, we can see here on the screen, said to have pretty much control of the country at this point. Does that change your calculus about how this war might end?
Well, first of all, Rob, thanks for having me on. But if you look at the whole scenario that's happened over the last 6 weeks, is the Iranian Guard, after all the leadership was killed, tried to take over. They're trying to push, each individual group. I think there's 30 to 35 individual groups all over Iran. And there's really no communication, and so they hadn't been able to communicate, and there's been people actually shooting missiles from areas that probably weren't supposed to. So at the end of the day, it's all about the Iranian Guard trying to communicate. They're not able to do that, but, I'm hoping and praying that in the next 48 hours with Vice President Vance going to Pakistan, hopefully they show up and we can get something done. But if we continue to let the Iranian Guard control this country, it's going to be devastating. President Trump's, he's not messing around here. I was with him this past week, went to the West Coast, and he is adamant. They're going, after tomorrow, if they don't come to a ceasefire, there's not going to be good things happen to Iran. And they better take him for what he's saying, because he's not going to mess around much longer, because we have to get the Straits of Hormuz straight, unblocked, and turned back to the people of this world.
Well, and he's got their ports blockaded. That's going to continue. How long can Iran, how long can they sustain not sending any oil out, from how long are they sustainable like that? Losing all that money, it's $500 million a day.
Yeah, there's no productivity. The people of Iran are probably suffering. They're losing $500 million a day when it comes to money, but money can't buy anything when you can't push anything in or out of the country, because it's all comes by ships. So they have a lot of problems right now. It's just unfortunate. The mainstream media and the Democrats, they are pro-Iran, anti-American when it comes to this war. And if they would just be switched to the other side, if they would back President Trump on this one thing, I think the pressure on the Iranian Guard would be so much that they would not be able to do anything other than do what President Trump wants to do. But when you even got people in this country fighting against the military, our military, President Trump, and the American way of life, then you've got huge problems. So it's just unfortunate.
60 Minutes with the interview last night, enough uranium from an expert saying for 10 to 11 bombs. That's exactly what Witkoff and company said that Iran threatened them with when they started the meetings, when they started the negotiations. That sure validates a lot of the decisions that this administration has made over the last 7 to 8 weeks, doesn't it?
Yeah, President Trump and his administration and the military have been right on target of what's going on with the intel behind the scenes. A lot of that comes from Assad. A lot of it comes from people that we're working with. At the end of the day, we cannot allow them to make just one dirty bomb. One dirty bomb would create World War III. And, everybody says, well, that's not a whole lot. At the end of the day, they don't need a lot. They can just put one little bomb together, explode that thing. We'd have all kind of problems. And so President Trump's doing the right thing. He's made the right decisions. Let's get this over with. But again, we have got to take out the Iranian Guard, because they're the ones that they don't care whether they live or die. They want to make sure that they maintain control. Hopefully the Iranian people take over.
Yeah. Senator, we appreciate you coming on. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, the kind of blatantly corrupt activity you'd expect to see in a place like Somalia. Amid an investigation into her corrupt dealings, Ilhan Omar tanks her own declared net worth from $30 million down to about $100,000. That's coming up. And then later in News from the Left, a Lutheran minister running for Congress in Iowa as a Democrat glowing as she describes officiating a wedding for two Satan worshipers.
They had a lot of baggage between the two of them, but there was no denying that there was something special about this moment.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
New Cologuard Plus?
Yep.
Colon cancer screening delivered to your door? Check. No prep? Check. Non-invasive?
Checkity check check. And it detects 95% of colon cancer, similar to colonoscopy.
Checkity jerk.
The Cologuard Plus test is for people 45 plus at average risk. False positive and negative results may occur, not for those at high risk. Introducing Cologuard Plus. It's the box that checks all the boxes for screening. Ask your provider or request Cologuard Plus online.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Do you know which investment has outperformed almost every other asset class since the beginning of last year? And that Goldman Sachs research is now forecasting to reach further heights. That's right, it's gold. Central banks around the world continue to buy gold at record levels due to economic turmoil, foreign conflicts, and a weakening U.S. economy plagued by debt. If you're concerned how to protect yourself as our financial system weakens, our team at Swiss America has a solution. For over 40 years, we've helped people just like you purchase precious metals for home delivery and for your IRAs. Don't miss out before this next big price jump. Call or text Swiss America at the number on your screen to receive your free portfolio review and a copy of The Timeless Truth About Gold and Silver. Let us show you how easy it is to safeguard your money. Call or text Swiss America today.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
It's unfortunate that they, are utilizing the faith of so many people and making a mockery of it. We have people that have been too cowardly to stand up for the Constitution, to stand up to this president.
Just the latest from the queen of the Somali fraudsters there, Ilhan, has got some issues of her own for herself. She just got caught pulling the kind of egregiously corrupt scam that you'd expect to see in a place like Somalia. After initially filing financial documents with Congress claiming her wealth had surged to between $6 and $30 million in 2024, because of course it did, Ilhan, now facing investigations into that money, claims, oh no, I'm only worth between $18,000 and $95,000, blaming the vast disparity on major accounting errors. I'd say so. Imagine expecting anyone to believe that you thought you were worth $30 million when you're actually flat broke. I just didn't know. I thought I was worth $30 million. Check out the corrected numbers side by side, top and bottom, I guess. Does that look like an accounting error to you? Can you imagine trying to get away with it? Imagine telling that to the IRS. They'd laugh in your face. Ilhan revising these numbers after the Office of Congressional Conduct requested additional information earlier this year. The feds are actively looking into Ilhan's financials. Since entering Congress in 2019, Ilhan, who hates America, hates white people, hates capitalism, now lives in Minnesota, married to a white guy, and is swimming in cash. Isn't that something? Political analyst Katie Zacharia joins us now. David Gaither is a former Minnesota State Senator. Good to have you both here. Katie, Oversight Chairman James Comer requesting these records from Ilhan Omar's husband back in February as part of their investigation because the money runs through him, right? He's got two businesses and a California-based winery and a venture capital firm headquartered in D.C. The winery's assets originally listed in congressional filings between $1 and $5 million. His D.C. firm valued assets between $5 and $25 million. In the prior disclosure, the winery showed up at $15,000 to $50,000, and the venture capital firm at less than $1,000. So these are extremely these people are very good at making money very fast. I think is the theme here. Katie, you got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well,
thanks for having me on.
I thought that was him.
Sorry, we'll start. Katie, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, out here in California, I've heard people compare her and their family with these wineries to, you know, the mob and Al Capone. But the difference is she's used her government position to steal money, likely from taxpayers. And I'm sorry, but Rob, if you had an accountant that made that kind of error, wouldn't you think that we would be investigating and firing that accountant? They've clearly laundered this money or moved it. And this is a scheme of epic proportions that needs to be investigated immediately.
Yeah. David, it looks like she's in some pretty serious trouble. It looks like she's scrambling right now. Tell us what you know about how this woman has done this and who she is. You're from her state.
Well, she's predictably unpredictable, and she's consistently inconsistent. She's a serial liar who lied about how she got to the United States, her marriage status, and at this point, it looks like she has accountants from Enron doing her work. And the question that I have of this, I think the most reasonable, sensible, intelligent people would ask is, were you lying on your return or were you lying now? Because 434 of her House members filed the same information at the same time that she does, and this is the first time that she's got it wrong. Something doesn't pass the smell test here.
Yeah, I mean, and Katie, just to go back here for a second, we recently spoke to a prominent businessman from Somaliland, which has broken off from Somalia after a civil war. The man told us the story of Ilhan's father and the horrors that he helped inflict on his people working for a genocidal regime in Somalia, carried out a pretty substantial genocide in the 1980s. Her father then is alleged to have lied on immigration and asylum forms in the 90s when he came to the United States, Katie. So there's just loads of fraud surrounding this family, this woman, and also just generally, and they're going to call it racist, but her brethren that come from this country. I mean, it's just there's loads of fraud surrounding all of this, and it's undeniable.
Well, and also, if you just look at simply Minnesota in general and the fraud that we've already uncovered, the 19 million, 19 billion, I mean, the numbers are going up and up and up, Rob, that I think to deny that she has participated in fraud and probably defrauded the American taxpayer, as I said earlier, is to deny the obvious. And so for her, who completely criticizes President Trump ad nauseum, criticizes America, criticizes capitalism, pretty much hates this country, it is beyond me to know how this person got elected. To deny that this is happening and not look fully into her finances and her family's background, as you just mentioned, Rob, would be to deny the American citizen justice here, because there is a clear injustice and she needs to be held accountable.
And David, just, you know, a quick side note, an Islamic woman wears the headscarf and she owns a winery. If you know anything about Islam and alcohol, that's the first clue right there, that there's not an authentic bone in this woman's body, that she is whatever she needs to be. I think she has an extremely sinister anti-American agenda. I think she's a plant put here to just kind of try and destroy us from within.
Well, she's duplicitous, and I spent 13 years working with this community on a one-to-one basis, thousands of Somalis, and what you learn is there's a cultural distinction that they have. It's a closed loop. If you're not of them or for them, you're not with them. And so she has been associated with billions of dollars of fraud. And to say that she has no knowledge of it or isn't connected to it is at best naive and clearly incorrect.
Yeah, I got to leave it there. David Gaither, Katie Zacharia, good to see you both. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, diving into the death of one of the 11 missing or now dead scientists being investigated by Congress. Why our next guest says Amy Eskridge did not commit suicide.
It's our America. We built it. Courage, freedom. Millions go to Newsmax when they need to know. Start today on the free Newsmax app. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Think of all the places that could expose you to identity theft and financial loss. It only takes one mistake at your bank, hospital, or employer for a criminal to gain access to your personal information. And if they do, you and your money are at risk.
$110,000 of my hard-earned money gone.
With LifeLock, if your identity is compromised, we'll step in and fix it so you don't have to. Guaranteed. Our dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialists handle your case from start to finish. They contact institutions on your behalf, dispute fraudulent charges, and more. In fact, we're so confident that restoration is guaranteed. Plus, LifeLock offers the $1 Million Protection Package with coverage up to $3 million.
When I opened my mail and I had a check from LifeLock, they made me whole.
Call now or go online and use promo code 35OFF to save 35% off an annual plan for your first year. Enroll now.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Dale, we can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield. Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
When we started Allegiance, we were shocked to learn how many American flags are actually made overseas.
If there's one thing that deserves to be made here in America, it should start with the American flag.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America, by Americans, with American materials.
Join our pledge to make the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
All right, so 11 top U.S. scientists, military officials, and researchers who worked in nuclear or rocket technology have either died or disappeared in the last few years. You know this story. It is a wild one. The House Oversight Committee today launching a probe into this after the president was asked about it. Congressman James Comer and Eric Burleson writing in a statement, if the reports are accurate, these deaths and disappearances may represent a grave threat to U.S. national security and to U.S. personnel with access to scientific secrets. The pair requesting a briefing on any information available from a multitude of different agencies in the government. It seems too crazy to be a coincidence, right? These 11 scientists have each reportedly had access to classified information linked to either UFO activity, aerospace technology, defense, rockets, things like that. They all knew something very valuable. One of those researchers include Dr. Amy Eskridge, a 34-year-old reportedly involved in extensive research into anti-gravity technology. This gets into like UAPs, UFOs, that kind of stuff. Eskridge allegedly died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head in her home in Huntsville, Alabama in 2022. Franc Milburn is a corporate intelligence and security consultant who partnered with Eskridge years ago investigating alleged harassment and threats to her that surrounded her work. And Frank joins us now, and we appreciate you coming on. I want to start here, sir. You were in communication with her before she passed. She had sent you messages describing harassment, allegedly writing, "By the way, if you see any report that I killed myself, I most definitely did not. If you see any report that I overdosed myself, I most definitely did not. If you see any report that I killed anyone else, I most definitely did not." And then she said, "The dominoes are being lined up all over again," at the bottom of that message. Can you tell us what you think is going on here, sir?
Yeah, well, that particular message was from her former partner, Sam Reed, who was obviously very scared. He later deleted those tweets from X, but I received a very similar text from her. And also, this was regularly given to me verbally in the year plus that I was speaking to her, that she was under threat. And, we were monitoring all the harassment, the sort of total spectrum harassment that was happening to her.
Yeah, It's such a, I mean, the width of the story and how many people are now involved and the conspiracy angle of it is just surreal. What do you think is going on here, in your estimation?
Well, look, I restrict myself to the Amory Eskridge case. She was clearly, and I provided you guys with the details, the video evidence, the photographic evidence, the messaging evidence, the multiple witnesses, a specific directed energy or weapon attack that melted the blinds in the room where she was working on an air-gapped computer, working on a project for Homeland Security, which would have protected the United States, the continental United States, subway systems from biological, radiological materials. And chemical materials. So that in itself, plus she was very interested in anti-gravity. That was something that she worked on. And there's a lot of people, how she put it in her own words, didn't want like a young upstart scientist like her and her friends taking their lunch away from them.
And explain to us, anti-gravity, that technology obviously is a huge threat to a number of different industries that we have in this country. Can you explain essentially what it is and why that would be so threatening, why she would be harassed for that? Because most people might not understand that.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, it's encapsulated. The whole thing is that she was interested in like the UAP technologies, what they call the so-called 5 observables, and which also concluded propulsion like anti-gravity and also free energy, which would revolutionize how we receive energy and produce energy, and would effectively give every poor village in the world free energy, and could also potentially be a very, very dangerous weapon. So if you're an aerospace company, and we've heard more and more that they have access to maybe off-world craft, which use these kind of energy systems and these types of propulsion, then somebody would be wanting to have that as their own IP and not have somebody else who's in the white world and wants to give it basically to the public. They wouldn't want that happening.
Before I let you go, I do want to point out that her father does not believe that she was killed by somebody else. He believes that she did commit suicide. Your response to that?
My response to that is I'm very, very sorry. I never wanted this to come out again. I never wanted to have to talk about it again. But I think we should start with investigation of the directed energy weapon attacks against her and what was reported to the FBI and why the FBI has spent 3 months talking to her and then said, we don't have the competence to cover this. So we don't have the jurisdiction. So I think we need to start there and look at all the other harassment and then see going forward how that might have affected her death.
It's such a wild story in so many different ways. Frank, we appreciate you coming on. Give us your perspective about the death of Amy from back in 2022. And we'll keep looking.
Thank you very much. Anytime. And I'll be continuing to provide you guys with information as I get it.
Appreciate that. Thank you, sir. All right, Republicans releasing their joint report on a major scam involving the Democrat Party's major fundraising apparatus. ActBlue, you've heard of this. ActBlue's knowledge of fraudulent foreign donations comes as no surprise. A New York Times bombshell report earlier this month revealing ActBlue was loaded with fraud. The fundraiser's training guide for fraud prevention, by the way, instructed employees to look for reasons to accept a contribution rather than flagging suspicious donations. They didn't care where the money came from. They just wanted it. They wanted to win at all costs. The House report shows ActBlue employees pled the fifth 146 times in 5 separate depositions to the committees investigating donor fraud. That usually means you're guilty as hell. From questions about donations and something called smurfing, which is bad actors making illegal donations using the names and addresses of other real people. You've seen the stories about the little old lady that somehow donated 2,000 times last year to ActBlue and doesn't remember any of it. That kind of stuff. Congressman Bryan Steil joins us now. He's one of the Republicans leading the investigation into ActBlue. Sir, what can you tell us we've learned here in the last few days?
Well, as we rolled out the staff report, I think there's two major pieces of information. One is we can now lay out the number of individuals who left in a wave of departures from ActBlue at the conclusion of the 2024 presidential election, right as our investigation was picking up steam. We also revealed today that 5 current or former employees of ActBlue came in, were asked 146 questions, and pled the fifth, refusing to answer questions on the record. All of this on the back of that New York Times reporting that they did not provide complete answers to Congress. Everything is on the table as we move forward in this investigation. I believe the American people deserve to know the answers, and we need to make sure that there is no foreign funds in our elections.
Do you think this could be the end of this as a platform for donations? I mean, will it get to that point? And how fraudulent do you think it could possibly be? How much money from foreign, potentially adversarial countries is being dumped into a Democrat Party that, in my opinion, seems less and less American every single year that goes by? I do not see a Democrat Party in this country that's looking out for the American people. I see one that seems to be working against what they want and what they need.
My standard in the law says that no foreign funds should be entering U.S. elections. When my investigation began in 2023, my concern was that foreign actors were finding ways to move funds through ActBlue to liberal causes and Democratic candidates. As we began to uncover, or what we began to uncover, was a lack of serious fraud prevention in the ActBlue system. For example, when my investigation began, ActBlue wasn't even requiring a CVV number. That's that 3 or 4 digit code on the back of your credit card that you have to enter pretty much anytime you buy anything online. They weren't even doing that or having that in place. The concern here for all of us is the lack of fraud protection in the prevention of foreign funds coming into ActBlue, again, to Democratic candidates, to liberal causes. Today's staff report furthers this information that as these employees came in, or former employees came in, they pled the fifth. They're refusing to provide us the information. And at the end of the day, I think the American people deserve to know that these online fundraising platforms such as ActBlue are not allowing any foreign funds to enter our election system.
We will follow this story, of course. Congressman Bryan Steil, we appreciate it. So what do you know about psilocybin mushrooms? Our president signed a very interesting executive order over the weekend with Joe Rogan standing right behind him. We've got an interesting guest coming up next.
A new president is sworn in. America's greatness is restored. Millions of Americans are tuning in to Newsmax. Even President Trump says Newsmax is terrific. Watch Newsmax or download our free app on your TV or phone today.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising what followed. In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2026, could a 1929 style market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Home of the No Fee for Life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell it all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet and exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
I am pleased to announce historic reforms to dramatically accelerate access to new medical research and treatments based on psychedelic drugs.
These drugs are illegal not because they're harmful, they're illegal because of the 1970 Controlled Substances Act.
Can I have some, please? I'll take it.
I'll take whatever it takes.
There you go. Interesting move by the president over the weekend. Joe Rogan, Kennedy in the Oval Office on Saturday, signing an executive order directing the FDA to speed up reviews of certain psychedelic drugs that are already designated as breakthrough therapy drugs for those with serious mental illness. He had a veteran with PTSD as an example of that. Think about what they've been through, what they're fighting. It also establishes a federal pathway for eligible patients to access investigational psychedelic drugs for treatment. Psychedelics are also known as hallucinogens. The Navy SEAL who shot and killed Osama bin Laden, Rob O'Neill, on this show all the time, you know him, praising this move by the president in the Oval Office. Take a listen.
It saved my life, and then it saved my wife. So every day's a blessing. It took about 3 years of. I did it 3 times. It's a different adventure every time. That's not fun.
So without it, you would have had problems.
I did it with. There was a Green Beret, 28-year sergeant major, that told me when we finished, make sure you tell Amber Capone, the CEO of Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, that she saved my life because I was going to kill myself next week. This was my last chance.
There's stories like that all over the place. Christian Angermayer is the founder of Atai Beckley, a mental health drug company going to be impacted by this, and he joins us now. Christian, good to be here.
Thanks for having me.
We live in a society that we have mental health issues and anxiety, depression everywhere. It seems like it's getting a lot worse. Talk about what these kinds of drugs can do that big pharma can't do, and why this is a better way.
Well, as you said, unfortunately, mental health is the #1 disease actually in terms of number of patients throughout. And by the way, the trailer talked about veterans, but it is a disease which literally affects every group of people, whatever.
Sure.
And unfortunately, we don't have so far anything that really works. Everything which is out there is really suboptimal, like SSRIs, Xanax,
Right.
whatever, and the standard of care has enormous side effects. So it's very clear since a long time we need much better treatment options for patients. And psychedelics is that.
So, I mean, I'm thinking of, mushrooms and getting high and feeling great for 6 hours and coming down. And I mean, you talk about ayahuasca as well, which isn't that like a cactus or something? You do it in the desert? I don't remember what it is.
It's the bark of a tree.
It's the bark, yeah.
So
what does that do? Like, how does that, if you're depressed and anxious, how does taking a drug like that make you feel better?
You're hitting hard because it's very hard actually to explain in some minutes. But you have a very deep introspective experience where you can actually really work through the problems, whatever is bothering you, wherever is it coming from. A lot is trauma, like the veterans have a lot of trauma, or whatever. So I would say, in a very simplified version for the show, it's kind of hundreds of hours of psychotherapy really in 4 hours. And this is so people might say now, oh wow, this is woo-woo, but the facts are we doing gold standard FDA clinical trials, and the success rates are above 50% with a very, very benign side effect profile.
Benign side effects, because as we know, the things that you get from big pharma can be
and it's then
very bad.
For many people, one session is sufficient. Some need two, but then it's good and done. So different than with these existing sort of treatment regime where people have to take
maybe
one or two. Yeah.
A lot of people are watching this right now. I'm sure a lot of them have anxiety, depression. What do they need to know to do? Like, how do they? What's the first step they take to move in this direction?
So hopefully now with the presidential executive order, this is moving even faster.
Yeah.
But some of our psychedelics were on a good trajectory for approval. Like, for example, psilocybin, which is actually a company, Compass, which we spun out of Atai, was anyway.
Right now, if you want to buy psilocybin, you got to buy it illegally.
First of all, it's very important for everybody who's watching. These are amazing therapeutics.
Yeah.
This is not something you should do at home. Yeah. This is in the future, when these substances get approval, will be that you go to your doctor and do it with them and then go home. Actually, there is already one, I would call it semi or psychedelic light on the market. Johnson & Johnson has a nasal spray called Spravato, which is a version of ketamine. Yeah, ketamine people know actually in a high dose an anesthetic, but in a medium dose, it is inducing a psychedelic session and is actually helping with what we just said, depression, anxiety, addiction. It's a psychedelic light, so it's not as strong, so the outcome is not as good as with, let's call it, the real psychedelics, but it is on the market. So people can go to a doctor already today if they have depression, treatment-resistant depression, and so on, and sort of get a Spravato ketamine treatment. That is a good role model, or is a good example how it's going to be in the future.
And you're hoping that quickly, because of this executive order, this will start moving in a direction where more people will be able to get help, go to a doctor, say, I want to look at this. Don't give me Zoloft. Like, let's look at something better here, something more.
So at the moment, we were trialing all these substances for treatment-resistant depression. That means people have tried 2 or 3 other drugs, they didn't work, then they defined as treatment-resistant. I personally believe that why would therapists in the future or physicians give suboptimal versions like Zoloft, where we know bad side effects and everything, and not actually even use psychedelics as a first-in-line treatment?
As a first-in-line treatment. Christian Angermayer, thank you so much for coming on and explaining.
Thank you.
Very interesting
Anytime
stuff.
again.
Appreciate it. Good to see you. All right, we've got some good news. Last week, we brought to your attention our carriage on Optimum, a major cable provider. We were having some issues. We're pleased to announce that Optimum has agreed to renew Newsmax. You can continue to watch us on Optimum with no interruption. Grateful to our viewers for your incredible support. Also appreciative to Optimum, of course, for renewing Newsmax. You can check us out. Also, Newsmax Plus, available with a free trial offer there on the screen. All right. With that, Democrats go overseas to Barcelona, bashing our president at a socialist summit. Up next in News from the Left.
And I want to bring you greetings as well from a nation that is in crisis. We need to call that what it is. That's fascism.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. With trillions of dollars vanishing from the stock portfolios of retiring Americans, many hardworking people I speak with are concerned about the holdings in their IRAs. But I have good news for you. Our team at Swiss America can show you how easy it is to own gold in your IRA. You see, even with economic turmoil all around us, gold continues to not only be a safe haven, but is also increasing to all-time highs. The volatility of markets has created a lot of undue stress for people. Wouldn't you like that peace of mind that diversifying into metals can provide? For over 40 years, Swiss America has helped people just like you own precious metals in your IRAs. So don't miss this opportunity. Call or text our team at the number on your screen to receive a free copy of our Gold IRA brochure today.
AI can turn your lights on.
Lights on.
And drive your car. And even write your kid's essay. But AI ain't gonna fix your broken water line or pay for the big repair bill. Having a plan from HomeServe offers real solutions. And when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. There's nothing artificial about the peace of mind you get with a plan from HomeServe. Getting one is quite intelligent.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-844-752-2141 or visit homeserve.com.
And now here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report and what changing weather conditions can mean for your home. Chris?
Our patented leaf filter technology keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. No matter where you live, no matter the climate. Locally trained professionals will clean, repair, and install the Leaf Filter Gutter Protection System. Leaf Filter guarantees clog-free gutters for the life of your home. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
Hi, I'm Arthur Lee, CEO, inventor of LifeVac, the only FDA-cleared airway clearance device that saves a life in a choking emergency. Over 5,000 people a year choke to death, one child every 5 days. Please, consider protecting your family, your business, your loved ones. Go to lifevac.net today.
Doctors' Preferred Liver Defense is doctor-developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple-tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctors' Preferred. Better science, better results.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Amid a run for Congress, a resurfaced video from 2023 showing Iowa Democrat House candidate and Lutheran minister Sarah Trone Garriott glowing, absolutely glowing, as she describes the day that she married two Satan worshipers inside of her own church. Just watch this and remember that she's running for Congress.
They had a lot of baggage between the two of them. Still, there was no denying how they were looking at each other. I thought about how the people at the courthouse had lied to them and how they would have been treated if they had walked into any other church in town. But there was no denying that there was something special about this moment.
I mean, she wants to run a district in her state in Congress. This is the level of delusion that you're seeing. I mean, again, we joke about all the time, the white liberal woman, what a terrifying thing that can be. This is what it looks like when your entire central nervous system is fully driven by empathy. And there is no other emotion, there's no other thought process at all. That's everything, is just empathy. And the love she has for these Satan worshipers that she married in her church, who were probably just mocking her the entire time, just by being there. All right, next up, socialists flocking to Barcelona for a global progressive meeting. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez under fire for corruption with his wife. Brazil's socialist President Lula, two of the most corrupt people in the world right there on the screen. American Democrats Tim Walz and Chris Murphy couldn't wait to attend. Tim Walz, a humiliation, probably has to go to another country just to not be mocked. Both of them bashing the president on foreign soil.
Want to bring you greetings as well from a nation that is in crisis. This is the most significant threat to American democracy since the Civil War. We are not on the verge of a totalitarian takeover. We are in the middle of it.
We've got a feeble-minded, trigger-happy president who plunged us into a war where no threat was present. We need to call that what it is. That's fascism.
Yeah, this is the one thing that the communists in Spain certainly love to yell out all the time. It's fascism. That's what the left loves to yell out all the time. Big old gaslight. Alex Soros, of course, was in attendance at that one. And finally, in news from the left, they expect you to believe that all these judges are unbiased. Former U.S. immigration judge Jeremiah Johnson, on the screen behind me, fired a few months ago by the Trump administration, was seen traveling through Guatemala, visiting relatives of an indigenous family who fled their village for the United States and won asylum in his courtroom. So this immigration judge is such a reckless open border freak that he walked into some of the most dangerous parts that trek all the way into Central America to visit a family that he gave asylum to. He granted asylum 89% of the time, by the way. The vast majority of the asylum cases in this country are totally fake because most of them walk through, again, a safe third country to get to the United States because they're shopping for the best deal that they can get. And this guy was an asylum judge, and all he wants to do is let the whole world into your country. And they tell you that these judges show no bias. Laughable. All right, it might be the best iPhone video ever taken, and it's up next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
If your dog struggles with stiff joints, low energy, messy poops, or an itchy coat, the cause might be sitting in your dog's food bowl right now. Kibble. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete, gently air-dried, packed with real canine superfoods to help your dog unlock puppy-like energy, smoother digestion, healthier joints, shinier coats, and more. Thousands have already made the switch. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
When you're out in the wild, you either have bare skin or you have no skin. You see, unlike regular old hoodies, the bearskin hoodie is actually built for the outdoors, and it can stand up to the toughest conditions. With other flashy mountain gear, you might just become a human popsicle. So make sure you're prepared to face Mother Nature with the bearskin hoodie.
You can get 60% off the bearskin hoodie today when you go to stopawfulhoodies.com.
Stopawfulhoodies.com.
Newsmax, you like Newsmax. I like it too. Newsmax, you like Newsmax. I like it too.
It's true. Millions of Americans agree with President Trump, and they're switching to Newsmax. They're watching great shows with Greta, Carl Higbie, Rob Schmitt, Finnerty, and more. If you're tired of big media, start watching Newsmax. It's free to start. Go to NewsmaxPlus.com for immediate access. Get all of President Trump's most important events live. Imagine watching Mike Huckabee's Israel Report, our Melania documentary, Clint Eastwood, Charlie Kirk specials, even the movie Jesus of Nazareth by Franco Zeffirelli. Once you start Newsmax Plus, you won't stop. So try it for free. Go to NewsmaxPlus.com, then download the app. It's easy. So make the switch to Newsmax Plus today.
All right, finally tonight, I love a good sunset video. This one is a bit different, though. Artemis 2 Commander Reed Wiseman sharing a spectacular video of an Earth set, which I just think that's so cool. Astronaut capturing the Earth setting from the far side of the moon, describing as you're watching a sunset at the beach from the most foreign seat in the cosmos, and it just goes a little bit longer. Rob Kennedy can join me for a little commentary as we see the Earth finally set.
They say you can see green light when it does, the green flash, when AI doesn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You're a funny guy.
Right, like where are the stars? Okay.
Well, that's the far side of the moon. I thought there was going to be like an alien base over there or something.
I could have colored that. Yeah, no, really good. Oh, the moon looks amazing. Yeah, please.
You're bad.
Good weekend, Rob?
Huh?
Good weekend?
It was a fine weekend.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. Sir, we'll pick this back up tomorrow night. I do believe that we went to space.
Okay.
Finity starts now.